Hi, so I am Bree Griffith, and I work with Brianna Spencer and Jordan McFarland. And our term is job killers, so I'm going to start with giving you guys a little bit of background information, and then they'll elaborate more. So, job killer is a term that suggests that the government's regulation of business will hurt an economic growth. This term has been used for many years, but it became more popular and used more in mainstream like media in 1984. It was booming during the Clinton administration, and then it became much more popular now during the Obama administration. Um, this is more of a Democratic term. You'll mostly hear Democrats speaking or using this term. Republicans don't really use it as often. What they use is job creators. So, yeah. Um, so it didn't always have the same connotation as it does now. It began as an expression among workers who were complaining about their managers at factories, just basically saying they weren't providing them with what they needed and things like that. And then the term was also used for the individual who was actually doing the firing of the employees. Um, and then it was also known or used again when new technologies came about that was kind of used in place of people. So basically, it was taking away the jobs from the individuals. So it's referred to many things such as healthcare, the raising of minimum wage, tax reforms, student loan reforms, and forced unionization. There's several other terms that it was used for, but these are just the more of the common ones. And here's a little like meme that I put in here. And so Jordan's going to be up next, and she's going to go ahead and give more information on the motives and things like that. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jordan McFarland, and I'm going to be elaborating a little bit more on the term job killers, as well as the motives behind it. Firstly, as Bree had mentioned previously, the term job killers refers to the government's regulation and how it hurts our economic growth. It is used to describe mainly policies in which are favored by the Democratic Party. Only sometimes is it used towards individuals. The Republican Party, however, as well as other business organizations, were the leading causes of the job killer allegations during the Democratic administrations. Basically, the motives behind the use of job killer is to slam policies which are opposing one's view, whether it is true or not. This term has coined a bit of a negative connotation, and any way that it's used, it's pretty negative. A problem that has risen over the years, though, are the constant allegations of government policies being job killers without really any sufficient evidence. In a recent study done by a professor, Peter Dreer of Occidental College, and a professor at the University of Northern Iowa, Professor Christopher Martin, they found that in media stories covered by the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, New York Times, and the Associated Press have increased the usage of the term. And they also found that in 91.6% of all of those stories, they failed to cite any evidence for their claims or quote an authoritative source. So it kind of goes both ways in which the term is used, but I just found that very interesting because prior to this presentation, I didn't really know a lot about this term. So thank you.
A couple of things that I found when I was researching the term job killer was a lot of stuff coming up about Obama and Obamacare. And I found this article in the Washington Post that says, "Is Obamacare a job killer?" And as I'm reading the rest of this article, one of the first things that comes up is, here we go again. Once again, another Republican politician has labeled the Affordable Care Act as a job killer. I thought this was really interesting because it really points out the fact that a lot of what we as a country do is blame another party. We're very blame savvy. So what is being done here is that the Republicans are using the term job killer against Democrats. in order to gain more popularity with the working class and in order to bring more people to their side of the party. If you look down, though, it says here that Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Seibles has reported that there's absolutely no evidence that there are any job losses related to the Affordable Care Act. So this is something that really puts the pin in it that it is kind of a fallacy, and it's one of those things that's used as a tactic to make the other party just look like they're failing. So another thing I kind of realized while I was reading some of these articles and researching the term job killer is that so many individuals, American individuals, will complain about not having a job or complain about being on unemployment or what have you, but yet they are the ones that are promoting outsourcing, because we have very little materials that are made in America nowadays, and so much of it is being outsourced and sold for cheap in stores like Walmart or even Target or 99-cent store or whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting also. But back to this article, as it says here, Republicans tend to cite anecdotal evidence, whereas the administration relies on broad overviews of the data. So generally, anecdotal accounts are less trustworthy than broader data sets, but the broader data can also obscure real-world impacts. This is just another note that, the party can use terms like job killer in order to get to working-class individuals and make them feel like what their country is doing is not beneficial for them. So it's losing their jobs. So what Obama has said for them is cutting their jobs. I'm not saying that the government isn't doesn't hold a huge responsibility for the amount of jobs that we have created, but I think that it's worth it for the American population to educate themselves on why and what sources we've come to for this lack of employment. And somewhere in here, I'm trying to find where it says, but I read that actually the part-time positions in employment have decreased while full-time positions have increased. So that kind of is another point that can go against this whole term job killer. The negative hit word, really. Another article I found was this one from Pointer, which is a collection and research leader in journalism. And the study was done between the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and it says that the Wall Street Journal has used job killer almost 3 times as often as the New York Times. So as we all know, Wall Street Journal is sort of a business-based newspaper, and is used mostly for white-collar Republican businessmen. So for them to be, and it's one of those things that many, I'm trying to refrain from using the word ignorant, but less educated Americans might want to look at the Wall Street Journal and put it higher up on a pedestal because it's something that they use for large corporations, bigger businesses, something that only, Ivy League alumni can really get into. So we really put that up on a pedestal. But what's really interesting is that they've been using these terms like job killer in order to, create these, as it says here, create allegations which were reported that suggest that the term, is used loosely. The term is used loosely, and it creates the claims that just aren't valid. And when you look at the research, it's not adding up. So this term really is killing a lot of what we think about America. So as it says here, the authors of this have written a history of the term from 1922 until the Republican framing strategy in 1993. Since then, the academics write it's been a smooth sailing for the term, which they find has little correlation with actual unemployment. They studied its use in 4 news organizations: New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal, and the Associated Press since 1984. So this is the graph here for how much it's been used. So you can see Wall Street Journal is just way up there. Washington Post and New York Times are the lowest. And that, again, and then the Associated Press is also very high. And that, again, you can see as where maybe a Republican Party has been using that term in order to negatively affect the Democratic Party. And as it says here, which connects to the previous article, is that the interesting linguistic tactics like Democratic Party and Obamacare and job killer are typically clumped together. So you can find that typically together. Anyway, that's what I found. I thought that it was a really interesting topic. I thought that job killer is definitely a tactic, and I think that Americans need to know that our government is essentially using marketing tools to get us to believe whatever we want. So we really need to hone in on that and start realizing that what they're saying may not be completely valid, and we need to look at so many different sources and different research that's been done on this kind of stuff, and really look at the statistics and the nitty-gritties of it. And I know so many Americans don't have the time for that kind of stuff, but it's really in our best interest to make the time. So thanks.